Well, ladies and gentlemen of the press, good afternoon. As you can see, my running mate, Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, is not here. And I know the question was going to be asked why. Today is the burial of the former chairman of the defunct Electoral Commission of Kenya, the late Honorable Samuel Kivitu. And Honorable Kalonzo has gone to represent us at that funeral. I am, however, with the two of my other members of the summit, S.K. Macharia and Honorable Moses Wetangula here, and several other members elect of either Parliament or the Senate. First, my statement is titled, Democracy is on Trial. Democracy on Trial in Kenya. I want to begin by thanking the Kenyan people for exercising their democratic right on the 4th of this month to turn out overwhelmingly to vote in the last elections. I also want to thank particularly those Kenyans who voted for me and my running mates in these elections. Even those who voted against me exercised their democratic right. But fellow Kenyans, members of the media, we again stand at a very pivotal moment in our history. We have created a new Kenya out of the ashes of the one that was nearly destroyed by the terrible violence which followed the tainted elections of 2007. It took 5 long years to rebuild this beautiful country and foster reconciliation among those divided and traumatized by the events of the 2007-2008. Our people have passionately embraced an unprecedented new order of reforms and economic vibrancy that will deliver a more prosperous and equitable society contained in a new constitution that is the envy of the world. And so, last Monday, the 4th of March, we all watched with utter gratitude the massive turnout as Kenyans waited patiently amidst hours-long delays to fulfill their desire to vote for the people they want to lead them. Despite the hiccups the IEBC experienced in implementing a smooth and transparent run-up to the election day, Kenyans were convinced that the IEBC would translate their faith in democracy into a completely credible election which would unite the country. What Kenyans witnessed instead was the failure of virtually every instrument the IEBC had deployed for the election. The poll book, the servers, the telephonic transmission, the electronic voter identification kits, they all failed despite the billions spent on acquiring them. 2 days after the vote, the electronic tallying was discarded and counting began afresh manually. That too turned out to be a flawed exercise in which, among other things, there was massive tampering with the IEBC final register of voters. The tallying process at Bomas of Kenya began with our agents being expelled from the center, thereby making the mandatory verification of results impossible. Voter registration numbers were reduced in our strongholds and added to the Jubilee strongholds. To give just one example, in Dhiwa constituency, the number of voters listed in the IEBC final register was different from that captured in the votes and election results that IEBC announced. At the same time, other constituencies saw the numbers of registered voters rise. On Friday, the IEBC announced the results of the presidential vote for Laikipia constituency. But the Laikipia North results had already been announced by the IEBC the day before. That was the same constituency. See, the figures in the Friday announcement gave me, the court presidential candidate, and my Jubilee opponent different figures from the ones announced a day earlier. What caused the difference? This is not the time to point to other examples of rampant illegality. That time will come. There had been a massive public investment in the IEBC to ensure that this first post-2007 election would firmly entrench democracy and the rule of law. The commissioners crisscrossed the world to study how our best Kenyans would have a credible election, which would allow them to support their new president, whether they voted for him or not. Now, it is clear that the constitutionally sanctioned process of electing a new set of leaders to take us to the next level has been thwarted by another tainted election. This is not the IEBC that Kenyans and Judge Krieger envisioned. This crisis is not just about the IEBC. It's a crisis in the very workings of the faith that Kenyans have placed in their institutions to respect their democratic rights and the rule of law. It is democracy that is on trial. As we said repeatedly during the campaign, we would have readily conceded if the IEBC had attempted to deliver a reasonable, honest election. Or even if it had addressed the serious concerns that the core team led by the Vice President formally presented to the Commission 3 days ago. We only want to lead if Kenyans want us to. We have no other vested interests. And if Kenyans don't want us, we don't want to impose ourselves in the will of the people of Kenya. Both Judge Krieger and the ECK chairman, the late Samuel Kivitu, acknowledged that it was not possible to know who won the 2007 election. We thought this would never happen again. It most regrettably has happened. But this time, you have a new independent judiciary in which we in court and most Kenyans have faith. We will uphold the rule of law and will abide by its decisions. We will therefore shortly move to court to challenge the outcome that the IEBC announced a few hours ago. We want to appeal to all Kenyans to respect the rule of law and the Constitution of which they are so proud. Let the Supreme Court determine whether the result announced by the IEBC is a lawful one. We are confident that the court will restore the faith of Kenyans in the democratic rule of law. Any violence now could destroy this nation forever. That would not serve anyone's interests. Please, therefore, look upon each other as brothers and sisters whose national bond should not be broken.